On the trail radio here, attempting to show you one of the radios I've had in my last couple videos, that being a Motorola HT1000. While taking it apart and measuring it, the radio comes out to be roughly 7.5 inches, and the antenna roughly comes out to be 5.5 inches. That is from here to here, and has a normal Motorola mini UHF connector that you just screw on like any other antenna. Once all is said and set in, it comes in at roughly 12 inches long, with it being in here. And up here you can see the Motorola brand logo, the speaker, the microphone, and the model number. Everything down here is completely blank. This has 3 programmable buttons along with a push to talk button that my finger is sitting on right now. Turning the radio again, you can see the charging port right here, which also is affixed to the battery that the belt clip is affixed to. The belt clip is not affixed to the radio itself, but the battery. That is how it generally comes. On this side, you have the microphone / programming cable for the Motorola's. Picking it up to the top, you can see a couple of features. You have the antenna, the channel selecting knob, the power on / volume, the 3 programmable zones, and a programmable button affixed to the top. Now this radio only has 16 channels. A lot of other Motorola's can have up to 48 channels, so that you have the 3 zones, each zone having its own channel. This is a 16 channel programmable radio only, and it has no screen, if you notice. So you already have to know what channel you're talking on. Something I recommend is taking a piece of paper and setting it behind the Motorola with all the channels and the frequencies that you have it listed on. How I personally use my Motorola is turn it on, A and B, has it set to scan. As you just heard, it picked up another frequency. Now that scan on B has it to scan repeatedly. The scan C has it scanning and then stopping on a specific station. Channel A, or Zone A, has it to where I can transmit on any of the channels that I have set right here. One of the great things about Motorola's, even though they are incredibly expensive, unless you get one of these models, which you can buy off of eBay and somebody can program it for you, is that it has a very consistent 5-watt rating. While testing it out, it was pulling about 4.8 to 4.9 the entire time. And the antennas that generally come with them, these little rubber duckies, are actually perfect for receiving within the UHF band. Whenever you have them, how I personally use it is I use these 16 channels, these 3 zones. I have A set to transmit on these channels and flip through. B is to scan these channels. C is to scan and stop on these channels. And these buttons I actually do not have programmed, and neither do I have this one to be programmed. I thought about making it a man down button, but as any other radio, you wouldn't want to accidentally set that off. It should transmit roughly the same as any other 5-watt radio, but because it is producing such a regular 5 watts, as opposed to any other cheaper radio, such as the Baofeng UV5G, rated for GMRS, which only produces anywhere from 2 to 4 watts, it will generally talk further and in better quality than some of the other cheaper radios. This radio is not system on a chip. It is a super heterodyne radio. So the frequency that you set it to receive at is going to receive and transmit better on that frequency. Do I recommend the Motorola HT1000? Well, that greatly depends, like any other radio, on your needs. You're not going to be able to program this radio on your own if you're just now getting into radio. It requires computers with a 9-pin serial port. It requires you to have very specific programming skills and programs to run that only generally run on older computers. So unless you are super into programming radios and you want to get into something like that, it's going to be a little bit harder for you to program your own radio. If you are in a group that's willing to program the radio for you, or you find a seller online who's willing to program it for you, and you don't have a need to change it regularly on a regular basis, then maybe this radio is for you. The batteries itself, if you find one with an old battery, is going to be terrible. But if you find one with a new battery, which these are compatible, then they are great. Last for multiple hours. Last for 10 minutes. But keep in mind, I bought these radios that seem to have been produced roughly 2013, so 10 years later. The fact that they can still transmit at such a great power is a testament to the radio's capability. So if you're a big radio nerd and you're able to program these radios on your own, then they're perfect for you to hook up to a base station, an amplifier, or anything along those likes. If you're a normal Joe and you don't plan on programming your own Motorola after spending $600 on the software, the computer, the hardware, everything else like that, then maybe I recommend something more along the lines of the Baofeng UV5G. These radios are much more for the normal working man such as you and me. That being said, it's not a bad radio by any means. It's just a little more high-tech than some of us might prefer. The more expensive and the better brand radio you get, the less options you're going to get to do it yourself. So that comes at the cost of you're getting better receiving, better transmitting, and realistically, it's what radios are all about, is two-way communication for receiving and transmitting. So, if you're not a normal Joe, get the HT1000. If you're a normal Joe, get the Baofeng UV5G.